Hey everybody, James Nutter here from I Am Wealth. Did you know that 3 of every 4 American families say money is their number one household stress? That means 3 of every 4 of your friends say money is their number one household stress. I too have felt it. I imagine you have felt it. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here right now. So that's why we created the I Am Masterclass, a safe space for you to learn with your friends and families how to take control of your money without making critical mistakes. And so thank you so much for being here. And please visit us at iamwealth.com. We offer free financial wellness diagnostics, have a bunch of great resources on there for you. And without further ado, let's jump into the masterclass. Welcome to the A Life Well Lived, a Physician's Guide to Wealth Masterclass, brought to you by I Am Wealth. And thank you so very much for investing your precious time with me today. I know there are countless other ways you could be spending your time and attention right now, and I'm honored, Jeff and myself are honored that you've chosen to be here with us right now. For those of you listening in the future, yes, we are time traveling today. Just a quick plug to you and thank you for being here right now. This is also going to be released as an episode on our podcast, exclusive I Am Wealth podcast called the A Life Well Lived, a Physician's Guide to Wealth podcast. We currently just dropped episode 2 today. So if you're listening on YouTube or somewhere else, be sure to check it out. It's on all major podcast platforms, Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, etc. Also, I had no idea iHeartRadio is like a massive podcast following. I didn't know that until launching this. So if anyone's still using iHeartRadio, thank you for tuning in. Appreciate it. But I'm James Nutter. I'll be your host today, partner and financial planner at I Am Wealth. And my goal is to make this an incredibly valuable use of your time. As always, 100% for free to help you take control of your money so you can live life with more purpose. I also have a very, very special guest with us today, my business partner, dear friend, and mentor, Jeff McPherson, CFP. Jeff literally has taught me everything that I know pretty much in life, but a lot of with financial planning, business, and everything. So you're absolutely in for a treat with him today. And before we dive in, let me just ask you a few questions, right? Who here has ever felt overwhelmed, uncertain, or even insecure about your finances? My hand is way up in the air right now if you're listening to me on the podcast, like almost touching the ceiling high. Who has stayed up at night wondering how you're ever going to manage your debt or just thinking about something money related? My hand is still very, very high in the air. And who here has been frustrated that after investing hundreds of thousands of dollars into your education as a physician, no one has ever taught you the basics of money? Yes, I'm not a physician. I didn't go through med school or anything like that, but I did study finance and accounting, and a lot of it was plugging formulas into a calculator that are completely irrelevant to what we do now, right? So if any of that resonates with you, you are not alone. These are the challenges that we are here to address with you today. Money touches every aspect of our lives, yet it's often very, very taboo to talk about in our society and culture. It's pretty conflicting, right? That we use it all day, every day, but we don't talk about it, even with close friends, close family, loved ones, spouse, partner, whoever. So that's why we created the I Am Masterclass and our podcast. It's a safe place to learn, plan, and take control of your money. And keep in mind that most of our viewpoints, mine included, surrounding money came pre-programmed and conditioned into us by our parents or whoever raised us, right? So a lot of times we really need to take a look in the mirror and ask ourselves why we are the way we are about our money and change from internal before we try to change our external world, right? Before you get mad at your spouse or partner for the Amazon packages that keep showing up, maybe we need to take a look in the mirror. I'm talking to myself here as well, to address why we are the way we are about money, right? Did you know that 3 of every 4 American families say money is their number one household stress? That's 3 of 4 of your friends, 3 of 4 of your peers from residency, fellowship, 3 or 4 of your peers from med school, and 3 or 4 of your existing peers. And that scores higher than politics, work, and family. So money is more stressful than politics, work, and family in this country, right? And younger generations are even more stressed out by money. Gen Zers, 82%, and millennials, 81%, saying finance are at least somewhat stressful, right? So a lot of times we see too with our existing physician clients, especially all of y'all in the Locums 1099 private practice world, you're paying 2 to 3 times in taxes every year compared to your salary in residency. Just think about that for a second. Like that is mind blowing, right? So we know it's frustrating for everyone. And today we hope to help you find some creative ways to address these symptoms. And at I Am Wealth, just a little bit about us. We currently help 80 plus physician families take control of their money so they can live more purposeful lives. And for everyone else like you with me right now on the podcast, YouTube, in the future, live today, we just try to give away a ton of everything we can to you for free. So you can learn how to take control of your money. And we hope it's better than any like paid program you'd find on the internet, right? And we do this for two reasons. One is just to provide free real world, wow, easy for me to say, financial wellness that helps you, because there's almost zero in society, right? There's none in med school, none in training. Maybe you had a person, a guy come in the fancy suit and talk about disability insurance or something, but not much, right? So this is a space for you to do that. And then hopefully, we earn your trust over time. We've had many families end up hiring us and joining I Am Wealth because of these master classes. No pressure to do so, but just know that it is a potential option for you if we earn your trust. Some quick ground rules. There's no cost to these master classes. There's no sales pitches and there's no fluff. So we could just commit to no BS for you. And a quick disclaimer, I Am Wealth does not offer individual financial advice outside of a formal consulting agreement. This masterclass is purely educational and aims to provide immense value. For personalized guidance, visit us at iamwealth.com or talk with your tax advisor and financial advisor, likely both if any of this resonates with you. For registering, or if you're listening to this on the podcast, you do gain access to a free financial wellness diagnostic with Jeff or myself. So visit iamwealth.com. And there will be a button right on the main homepage so you can book that. It's 100% free. And if you like what you hear today, please continue to check out the podcast unless you're listening to the podcast right now. So I am now going to hand the baton off to Jeff, who is going to share a pretty cool, simulated case study story. And fun fact about Jeff is, Jeff just had his cute little baby Ellie Mae a few months ago. So I'm sure he's already, she might be in the background, like cleaning the office right now. She's probably like on the payroll at 2 months old already. Is that the case, Jeff?
Not yet.
No,
Not yet. The wheels are turning in my head now about how soon and how can we get her involved.
I love it. I love it. Well, are you feeling ready to jump in? Is there anything that I missed?
No, that was a great intro. Yeah, I can jump in and before I do the case study, which I actually have for people that are going to be watching this back. Hopefully, I'm going to raise this desk and we'll be able to see this whiteboard behind me for just a really, ideally a simple real world kind of scenario of how we can get kids involved and how it can benefit the kids, as well as just create some additional tax savviness into the family's financial situation. So I'm going to do that. But before I jump in, I do want to just also share that I'm super excited about this one and have been for a while, ever since James and I started talking about doing a class on how to get kids involved in business. Because I do want to just disclose that I'm super biased to getting kids involved. That was me when I was a kid. My dad, who actually just ironically, of course, the reason why I chose to go into this financial business is because I grew up around it. My dad started in 1975. He's actually still going, and he's turning 75 this year. And this would be his 50th. He'll be celebrating his 50th year as an advisor, but had a huge impact on me as a kid. I'm sure maybe some people that are listening to this might agree that, looking at their parents and what they've done and just kind of following in their footsteps maybe. But when I was a kid, obviously like any kid, there's lots of things that you want. You have no concept of money, right? Just like whether it's you want a toy, you want to go do things that are fun. There's all those different things. And I think one thing that I really cherish about my childhood was that my parents always found ways to give me opportunities to earn money, and taught me a lot about responsibility. It taught me a lot about making decisions with my time, making decisions with money. And, even just as like a 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old kid, I think it's just completely life-changing, and just kind of sets the tone for a positive future as it relates to just making confident, independent decisions, even from an early age with money. I think that translates well into adulthood. So, like I, as an example, one real example that I'll never forget was I had my heart set on getting a Nintendo 64. So for all the young folks out there that are like, what the hell is a Nintendo 64? That was like the real deal back in the day, man. In the 90s, that was the hot console. And we were wanted to get that so I could play GoldenEye and Mario Kart and all that stuff, right? All my friends had the 64. I didn't have one. I wanted one really bad. And my mom and dad found ways to get me opportunities. I would go in pretty much every Saturday morning with my dad. Back in when we were young kids, he would work half days on Saturdays just to kind of catch up on things around the office. And so I'd go in. It was just fun being around dad. But it was also a ton of fun learning about, what he did for our family and just playing a part. I mean, I think I got started maybe when I was about 6 years old. I'd go in and before paper shredders were a thing, I would be like a manual paper shredder. So just like shredding documents. And as I got older, right, this just kind of comes into play when you're starting to think about, okay, how can I get my kids involved in a legitimate capacity, right? Like what are they suited to do that actually add value to the business? So as I got older, I started getting more responsibility and my pay would increase and it was all kinds of fun stuff like that. But I put in quite a bit of hours. I actually did the calculations. I remember the retail, and this is the funny thing about it. I can actually remember the retail price of the 64 back then. It was $150. And at the time I was earning about $5 an hour. So it took me 30 hours of work to get there. So basically as a young kid, I had mapped out that I had to sacrifice 6 Saturdays to earn the money to buy it. And I'll never forget like the feeling of pride walking into Funko Land was the name of the store on 28th Street here in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And my dad took me in the Saturday after he gave me my last paycheck to get it done. He knew what the goal was and had a lot of fun watching me work for it. And it was just very satisfying to go in and get that machine. And I had a lot of fun with it. But I only share all that just to place an emphasis on what I think is a really important aspect of this topic. We're here to highlight tax creativity, absolutely. For a lot of things that people on this call or people that are listening to this episode may already be doing, whether it's saving money for college or setting money aside in brokers for, kids' eventual weddings or, buying their first car when they're 16 or private school or, helping them with a down payment down the road when they're moving into their first home as young adults. All these things are really good, but to me, I think the real story is about investing in our children because it made a lasting impact on me. So I'll just jump into this scenario.
Jeff, may I interrupt you really quick?
Sure. Yeah.
So this is totally unplanned, unscripted. My fiance and I are in the midst of moving, so I'm currently my standing desk is 2 shoe boxes. And that's where I store like old cards and stuff. For anybody who's watching this, here is what a Nintendo 64 game looks like. I actually found one in the shoebox.
Oh,
you were talking about it. And I was like, I gotta pull that out. Anyway, so
such a great dude. That was a great game. I was it's funny because I was selective with my games. I was never good at NFL Blitz. I would just stick with the ones that were my bread and butter, like GoldenEye and Mario Kart.
That's too funny. So didn't think we were talking about Nintendo today, but anyways, we can get back. Jeff is going to share a case study that's going to be applicable to all of you. And then I'm going to go through, I think it's like an 8-step framework of how to actually go about doing it. So we want to make sure that you get the story and you get the framework. So if you're listening, make sure you stick around until the end, but I just had to share that. All right.
I love that you had that handy. That's amazing. Yeah, that's great. And one last story that I think, and I'm not making this up at all. This is like the real deal. I think it was, this was before the N64. I think it was after like my first Saturday of going into the office. I remember I had I had earned $6 that day. And they were all in singles, like $1 bills. And I remember being at home, like alone in my bedroom, and I actually like fanned them out. Like I fanned out the $6 in my hand. And I was looking at it, I was like, oh my God, like, what am I going to do with all this money? So it's really cool. I think, the imagination of kids, right? It's just so special. And this is just a great way to get kids in and around business, let them, grow and appreciate what mom and dad do for them every day. All the spouses and partners out there of the world, whether married or unmarried, when we have kids, it's just such a special bond. And I just think, as a kid that went through that, I hope to bring some of those lessons to our family, personally. So let's have some fun and look at this scenario. Otherwise, I could sit here and just like reminisce about it forever. But I'm gonna raise this desk up, and I do have this whiteboard behind me. We're just gonna use a scenario of a dual physician couple, just to illustrate the example. And in this example, we have one spouse that is working as an independent contractor in an emergency medicine group, right? And that spouse is earning 450,000 per year of collections from emergency medicine group, right? And then we also have spouse two that is earning 550,000 of W-2 income working for a health system. So we've got a blended style of income coming through. One has their entity pulling in all the income and then paying themselves out of that entity. The other one's just straight up W-2, making a bunch of money, maxing out a 403B, and all the rest of it just paying a bunch of taxes, and the rest lands in the personal checkbook at home with Jane and Bob Smith. So this is just kind of a scenario we see a lot with our clients, that maybe they're all W-2, but in a scenario where we've got any 1099, if it's the sole source of income, great. If it's even just a pocket of income, fantastic, because we can still get as creative as possible to drive down that tax liability. But let's just focus on the kids. So there's a lot of different things going on around with this whiteboard, but I'm going to focus primarily on the total number that the family is bringing in, right? So we have a total household income of $1 million. For a married filing jointly couple, on their top dollar, every dollar in their top bracket is going to be taxed at that 37% rate at the Fed. They're going to pay 1.45 in Medicare, and then 0.9% surtax on Medicare as well. I didn't include state tax because people live all over the country, and whether you live in a state that doesn't have state income tax, or if you have one that's on like kind of a graduated scale, much like the federal tax code is built. I just left it out just to keep things simple and standardized across the board for anybody that might be listening to this. But that would put you at 39.35%. So basically 40 cents on every single next dollar that this family earns, they're going to pay 40 cents on the dollar. So I say that to just keep a super simple scenario coming through of, let's say after all is said and done, with EMG paying the Smith Emergency Medicine PLLC 450 grand a year, they're going to max out their solo Ks and do all their deductions that they can possibly do at the business level, and then it lands over in the personal checking account, just like the W-2 income does for ABC Health. And then from there, with the three kids, Jill, Sam, and Susie, Jane and Bob Smith, like many of our clients, like to plan for their kids' future, in particular in the college savings arena. A lot of the couples that we work for want to make sure that they don't have their kids, carrying such large student loan burdens as they have. So in this scenario, we have 10,000 per kid going to 529 accounts for Jill, Sam, and Susie. And they're going to Jane and Bob Smith. In the current scenario, they're doing that with after-tax dollars, making personal contributions from their personal checkbook to Jill, Sam, and Susie's 529 accounts. So it's just some simple math on that. If that $10,000 is the net number that's coming after tax, once it's landed in personal checking, and we're just considering this to be the top dollar tax treatment, $10,000, we're going to gross that up to account for the taxes involved. So at that 39.35% tax liability, we just take 10 grand times 1.3935, and that would be $13,935 per kid to save 10 grand. So let's just call it 4 grand in taxes. If you want to save, if this family currently saving 10 grand per kid into a 529 account, it's going to cost them about 14,000 of earnings to do that. If that makes sense. So I'm going to just pump the brakes for a second. And James, any questions at this point, or anything that I missed? And I'll transition into a different way to direct money in the same type of account, but how it gets there.
No, everything sounds good. And once again, if you're listening on the podcast, Jeff is just on a whiteboard showing money flowing from work into the PLLC, and then into the checking account, and then out of the checking account into the kids' 529 plans. Just so for anybody listening on the podcast, that is what is happening here. But no, Jeff, go ahead. You're doing great.
Okay, cool. All right, so now I'm going to just take away the 10,000 that's coming from personal checking to all three of the kids. And now we're gonna hire the kids. Do this differently. So this is where we get creative with Smith Emergency Medicine PLLC. And let's say like, little Jeffy back in the day that had a job working for $5 an hour, right? You gotta find, and this is gonna be in the steps that James will discuss, and there's probably some, some downloadables or whatever that we can help hook you guys up with too. But we gotta find something that's reasonable that they can do that bring value with their time, that bring value to Smith Emergency Medicine, whether it's administrative work or if it's, social media work or whatever it is. Have fun with that. And of course, your advisor should help you navigate through that process as well. But let's just have Jane and Bob set up custodial savings accounts for Jill, Sam, and Susie. And so how that's going to work is while they're minor children, Jane and Bob are still going to control the accounts for the benefit of Jill, Sam, and Susie. But those are no longer going to be funded from Jane and Bob Smith's personal checking. We're actually going to start paying the kids. So Jill's going to give her time and skills to Smith EM PLLC. So will Sam and Susie. And let's just say, because we're already used to using of Smith Emergency Medicine PLLC, $13,395 per year of Smith income. Let's just pay the kids that, because that's what we're used to. And then we're going to show you how this can get really fun. And of course, you can do whatever you want to do, but the design is just so you can see an illustration. So it's still going to cost Smith Emergency Medicine the same amount of money to put away $13,395 per kid, right? So you're still doing the exact same thing, but it's a deduction off the top of Smith EM PLLC. The kids are not going to pay any. They're not going to have to pay any tax on that. It's underneath the standard deduction. This year, the standard deduction is at $15,000 for single filers. So for the kids, no tax return necessary. No income tax is necessary. And now we've got that full $13,395 that lands in their possession. And of course, parents are managing. And from there, you can set up 2 accounts per kid underneath that. And we're going to, as an example, let's just lock in on Jill. Let's say for Jill, she earned in 2025, $13,395, of which 10 grand goes to a 529 account. Same thing as they were doing before with after-tax dollars, but now we're doing with pre-tax. Now we're going to also take the balance of $3,935, plug that into a Roth IRA. So of course you can do more than that into a Roth, and this is an individual decision that any family would make, but I'm just trying to illustrate the point of we can use the same amount of money to do what we're doing, but just do more and have a bigger impact on the kids, right? So we're going to pick up about $4 grand a year that could go into that Roth IRA for Jill, Sam, and Susie. And just as an example, let's pretend Susie is 12 years old, or Jill. Let's pretend Jill is the oldest and she's 12 years old. And if we just do that for the next for 5 years, right? Do the exact same thing, pay her the exact same income, put 10 grand in 529 over 5 years, that's 50 grand in. And then we'll put 3935 into a Roth IRA for Jill for 5 years. That equates to just under 20 grand. That would be $19,675. And if Jill lets that money sit in the Roth, just 5 years of contributions only, never making any new contributions whatsoever, and Jill retires at age of 62, and she would have about $793,000 in the Roth IRA if she was averaging a rate of return of 8%. And so what we're trying to illustrate here is, again, these are things that a lot of clients or a lot of people out there are already doing. They're saving money for their kids' college, but they're doing it with after-tax money from personal checking and just putting it directly into a 529 account. Is this easy to do? it's not overly difficult. It just requires careful planning and thought, with your kids and with your spouse and with your team of advisors to make sure we get the kids into something that is a real legit role that they can serve to the business. But if you're already doing these things for the kids, why not give them an opportunity to learn about you, learn about your business, learn about money, learn how to make decisions. You don't have to just park all of that money into 529 accounts. I know for me, a lot of it was like an opportunity to learn about spending my own money and making decisions as a kid independently about my time and money. So I just think it's a really great exercise to look at how can a family that's already doing these things, setting money aside for college, if they have the ability to pay the kids, get the kids on payroll, and set money into a Roth IRA, even just in addition with the money that you had been paying in taxes, you reclaim that money for all the kids over the next 5 or whatever years, as long as they're employed by your company, and just put it in their possession rather than giving it and, writing checks to the IRS for that same amount of money that it's costing you in total production, clinical production, in order to hit the savings goals. So I'll stop. James, does that, for the most part, make sense, what I just went over?
Jeff, you're telling me, so if we invest the money that would have gone to the IRS at $4,000 a year, $39.35, and invested it, and it got an 8% return. We can't guarantee returns, by the way, for our compliance team. You hear me right now. We can't guarantee this. And it sits for 50 years. It grows to $700,000 tax-free and never once paid tax on those dollars.
Yeah, so one thing I'm holding up right here is it shows on this side, right? Jill's savings going in. So of course, the earlier you start, the longer that contribution, that one block of contribution has to compound at whatever growth rate it's able to achieve. I just use 8% as kind of like a reasonably realistic expectation. Obviously, those, like you said, it's not something that anybody can really control. But if we look at getting an average of 8% for 50 years on that first contribution, that 3935, $3,935 contribution would grow to 184 grand. And then the next year, when we have 49 years to go with the next block, that grows to 170 grand. And then when the next year, the contribution, because it only has 48 years to compound, it would grow to 158 grand. So you can see kind of like how it works. It's another encourager to just say, like, hey, if you got the capacity to do this and you want to get the kids involved, get the kids involved. And as soon as you can, it just gets more legs underneath their those retirement accounts from an early age. And that's only that's only taking into account doing this for 5 years and contributing 39.35 for 5 years, and then shutting off contributions thereafter. So the total contribution over 5 years is just under 20 grand.
I mean, talk about building a legacy. There's got to be people out there listening to this like, oh my goodness, like that is unbelievable. 20 grand grows to 700,000, hypothetically, but on money that would have been, paid in tax. That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing.
So the one thing that I will say, like, too, is again, that 39.35 for that example is if this family didn't do that, right? They just kept putting 10 grand into the 529 accounts directly from personal checking. They're still, that 39.35 is still leaving their possession, but it's going to the IRS. It's not going to their kids. So it's just it's the same amount of production that it costs to do the same thing, only you're able to position your kids to set them up. Yeah. So one other thing too, this is demonstrating a scenario where this individual would be set up as a sole prop. If somebody's electing S corp, there's other things that come into play, like payroll tax. That would, if somebody's electing S corp, right? That kind of compresses just a little bit. It compresses the tax savings because the company still has to absorb an additional expense of paying the kids that $13,395. So if you're still just trying to it's still going to be a win. You're still winning in doing it that way. You just win a little bit less, so It's still the proper way to do it if you get kids that you want to get involved. But that's again another thing to have some really careful planning conversations with tax advisor, financial advisor to set things up appropriately so that you're doing the details correctly.
And once again, if you want to see if this is even like a viable option for you, just visit iamwealth.com and book one of those free financial wellness diagnostics, and Jeff or myself can let you know. But I'm sure, Jeff, that was great. Anything else that you want to add?
No, I think that's good enough for now. Otherwise, I'll just keep going on it forever because it's so fun to talk about.
Jeff could play on a whiteboard for like 10 years. And I love it. It's that, child in you. But I'm sure if you're listening right now, you're probably wondering, okay, that's great. Looks awesome on a whiteboard. Great story. But how do we actually do this? And once again, Jeff and I are not going to stress enough. As a DIY, I don't want to make a formal recommendation, but you might find it to be a little bit challenging to do this unless you kind of like flirting with maybe being audited by the IRS. Maybe, potentially, right? So you really, 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 really want to surround yourself with a capable team, right? If Tom Brady surrounds himself with a capable team, Beyonce, all the people in society, right, surround himself with a team to help him complete the mission, why not you and me, right, my friends? So definitely talk to, I'm going to keep voicing this, tax team advisor, because you don't want to code it wrong for the IRS and then have something happen. So I'm sure you're wondering, okay, how do we do this? So let me go through a step-by-step framework for you today. And then once again, to actually execute it, work with your team, right? So the prerequisite checklist, and essentially what you'll need to get started is, of course, you'll just need a legitimate business entity, either a sole prop, LLC, S Corp, or professional corporation. You'll need a reasonable job that your child can perform. I'll talk about more what this looks like in a second. Give you some ideas, right? An appropriate wage that follows IRS guidelines. Work with your tax team on that. A separate checking account for payroll processing, payroll documentation and tax forms, and then understanding of Roth IRA or 529 contributions for minors. Once again, these are optional, but highly recommended to, once again, set them up for future success, especially if you're already doing things like the 529 plan. Once again, you'll have to be creative too, right? You're not following some cookie cutter solution of how to do this. You need to be creative of how can you add value to your business and how can you add value to your kid's life. So get creative, work with your team, get on the whiteboard, kind of like what Jeff was just doing. So let me go through the step-by-step guide to putting your kids on your payroll. So step one is just setting goals and defining your family values and the values that you want to teach your kids out of this, right? So this is where the creativity comes into play. So I would encourage you, schedule a meeting with your tax team, financial advisory team, get together collectively and begin to brainstorm, right? So decide first and foremost, what do you want for your kids? How do you want to help your kids? And I think a lot of this varies, right? I have clients that I work for that their kids or their parents didn't help them with college and they're paying down student loan debt. And they either say, I absolutely want to help my kids because I never want to have them go through what I went through and how I wake up in the middle of the night thinking about my student loans. Or they say, these taught me great life lessons and principles, and I don't want to help my kids with college. Like there's so many different scenarios, right? So you need to decide, how do you want to help your kids? How do you want to set them up for success? Is it private school now? Is it college later? Is it a wedding? Is it a down payment on a house? Is it a retirement head start? What is it? And it doesn't just need to be Roth IRA and 529 plans. There's other things that you can do for your kids. Like Jeff said, pay them $5 an hour in cash. No, I'm just kidding. But there's other things that you can do, right? Brokerage accounts, other types of, could once again give them like an allowance so they can learn things like that, right? And then how do you want to teach your kids about business and money, right? So what are the non-monetary aspects of this? Teaching them the fundamentals of success by incorporating them into your work. So ask yourself, what values do I want to pass on to my children? What values did I learn growing up that I want to transcend and pass on to them? Or maybe what values did I learn growing up that I don't want to pass on to them, and then do the opposite, right? So ask yourself kind of these self-assessment questions, like what kind of legacy do I want to leave for my kids? How do I want my kids to grow up? What type of values do I want them to carry? What types of humans do I want them to be? What type of principles? All the things, right? So ask yourself some of those self-assessment questions. Step two is share your goals with your advisors. So you could brainstorm with your spouse or partner first, maybe even potentially get your kids involved, and then schedule time with your, advisor and share your goals. So meet with CPA and financial advisor, tell them what you want, and then from there, it's their job to help you make the right decisions from there. Step three is just confirming your business structure. So before hiring your child, once again, ensure that your business structure allows for legally employing family members. And a tip, sole proprietors and LLCs without non-spouse partners can hire their children under age 18 without paying Social Security or Medicare taxes. So as an action item here, and I didn't say this at the beginning, but I always encourage you guys, right? Like you can read as many books as you want about like delivering a baby or saving a life in the ER, but do you really know how to actually do it until you go through the training and you're in the heat of the moment, like patient lives, patient dies, right? So always, as we're going right here, take down, notes as you're going and say, what is an action that you can take in the next 24 hours to bring this to life? Step four is identifying legitimate job duties for your child. So the IRS requires that your child performs real age-appropriate work for your business. Some examples include a social media assistant, an office assistant, a website tester, tech support helper, photography and videography assistant. If you do podcasts, it could be like a podcast or YouTube video editor. Jeff, maybe Ellie wants to do that for us sometime soon. It can be a brand model, right? So you can actually use images for your website potentially. Marketing material contributor. They can do cleaning and office maintenance. They can be a content creator, a blog writer, an event assistant, packaging and shipping assistant, product tester, feedback provider, customer experience assistant, appointment scheduling support, financial research assistant, right? So this is a variety of different things just to give you ideas. So avoid assigning tasks that do not directly benefit your business. The IRS will disallow wages that seem like disguised allowances or personal expenses. So once again, work with your tax team about doing this correctly and your financial advisory team. And then you must, as an action item, document their job role and responsibility. So if you're with me right now, start brainstorming like what area of your business, and think about things that are below your hourly rate. Jeff and I are constantly trying to think about how we can delete, delegate, or diminish things that are below I Am Wealth's hourly rate. So just think about it and see if your kids have a skill set to be able to do any of it, right? So think about those types of things. And then how much you can pay your child. I mean, it's kind of all across the board, right? But ages 6 to 12, maybe simple tasks like shredding, organizing, social media, 10 to 15 an hour. Ages 13 to 17, if they're doing more technical roles like video editing, website testing, photography, blogging, maybe 15 to 30 an hour. One-time tasks like modeling for marketing, it could be maybe flat fees of 50 to 200 per session, something like that. Once again, work with your tax team to come up with the strategy. But for a child working 10 hours a week at $12 an hour, that's $62.40 a year, potentially tax-free. Once again, work with your tax team on coming up with the exact numbers. Step 5 is determine a reasonable wage. So once you think about I guess this is a little bit double, but once you think about the job role for them, you must determine a reasonable wage, like what I just talked about. And IRS mandates that wages paid to your child must be reasonable for the work performed, meaning you cannot overpay them to simply move money tax-free. Guidelines on this: base pay on what you would pay a non-family employee. Research fair market wages for similar work. Use government resources like the Bureau of Labor Statistics for salary benchmarks. And the 2024 tax threshold is you can earn up to $14,600 per year without having to pay federal income taxes thanks to the standard deduction. So an action item for you there is set an appropriate wage and maintain records for proving fair pay. Step 6 is set up payroll and issue paychecks. So to comply with tax laws, your child must be paid like a real employee. This means setting up some type of payroll properly. So you have to use a payroll service to process payments and ensure tax compliance. You can pay via check or direct deposit into those custodian accounts that Jeff talked about. And like they were a real employee, you have to track hours worked and tasks completed for record keeping. So do not transfer money into your child's account randomly without documentation. This could trigger an IRS audit. So step 6 is set up payroll processing and keep detailed work records. Step 7 is report wages and file taxes correctly. Once again, you want to lean on a tax team. And, we kind of find there's 2 different kinds of tax teams, right? There's very reactive tax teams that just like right now, all they're doing is processing a tax return for you. There's also proactive tax teams that actually give you advice on your taxes. And as a, 1099 Locums business owner, you want to pay a tax team that is going to give you advice. And, sometimes we talk to physicians like, 1 to 2,000, that's so much money to pay a tax team. I mean, it's worth it, if they're able to help you implement strategies like this, right? So even though your child may not owe taxes, you must still file proper forms to document their income. So for sole props and LLCs without partners, you'll report wages on a Schedule C. For S Corps or C Corps, file W-2 forms for your children, and then issue W-2s if wages exceed the IRS filing threshold. So an action item there, just work with a tax professional to ensure compliance. And then step 8 is consider opening a Roth IRA or a 529 plan for your child. And once again, this is dependent on your goals. Don't just do it because it sounds cool when everyone else is doing it. Like you and your family need to decide what values you have and what goals you have. And do you want to pay for their college? Do you want to set up a Roth IRA? Would you rather set aside money for like a wedding into a brokerage account, whatever it is, right? So once your child earns legitimate income, they can become eligible to contribute to a Roth IRA, first and foremost, allowing tax-free growth and withdrawals in retirement. The contribution limit for 2024 was up to $7,000. As Jeff, in his example, he just did the 3935 for simplicity. And it's a powerful way, once again, to teach financial literacy and compound interest to children. So potential action item is set up a custodial Roth IRA and start investing their earnings. Also, the second potential option, there's lots of options. We're just kind of really lasering in on these 2 today, is using payroll funds for college education planning. So like we discussed earlier, save your child's wages for education expenses so you can consider contributing to some type of potential 529 plan. Once again, it's going to be unique to you, the state you live in, all the different things. So talk with your financial advisor, your tax team, or book one of those free financial wellness diagnostics with us, and we can kind of help you determine what makes the most sense because each state has unique rules. So an action item from here is discuss education savings options with, first off, yourself and your family, and decide if that's something you want to do, and then with a financial advisor to maximize your tax benefits. And a good financial advisor team should be able to tell you, like if it's 16 years until your kid goes to college and you want to choose, let's say, Michigan State University for Jeff over here. Jeff is an alum of Michigan State, was a college football stud there back in the day, but we'll save his highlight tape for another day. But a good financial advisor should be able to forecast with inflation what Michigan State is going to cost in 16 years, and then how much you need to save every single month beginning today to help get you there earning X percentage. So work with a team to help you do that. And then just a couple common mistakes to avoid is, hiring kids too young or for non-legitimate work. No offense to Ellie Mae. I'm sure she couldn't do much for I Am Wealth right this very second. Given that she's, 2.5 months old.
Yeah.
Another one is paying an unreasonable wage that doesn't align with market rates. Third is failing to document work performed and hours worked. Fourth is not using payroll or skipping tax documentation. Fifth is commingling funds, right? So personal and business accounts must stay separate. So action item is double check all IRS compliance steps before filing taxes. Once again, a great tax team should be able to help you with all of this. So overall conclusion, right? The long-term benefits of this strategy is really just creating a legacy for your family in a variety of different ways, right? So you may be able to significantly reduce your taxable income. You'll be able to create a tax-free wealth building plan for your children, and then also teach them financial responsibility, but also the values and principles of hard work and money from a young age. Like that, not all of us get taught that in this country. Like I said at the beginning, it's very taboo to talk about money in this country and society. So I think that's a great way to help teach your kids young, right? So one of the simplest, most effective ways for locums, 1099, private practice physicians to maximize tax efficiency while setting up a legacy for your kids and your future. And Jeff, is there anything else or anything that I missed or misspoke on? Because once again, I am not a tax advisor, so I want to make sure I didn't like misspeak anything in there, or anything else that you want to add.
Oh, I think you nailed it on all the technical aspects, and in particular, just like when it comes to making decisions. You know, all the stuff we talked about today was just as an example. It can go as you can go as deep down the rabbit hole as you want and have as much fun with it as you want. And the best way to do it is to start, like you had said, James, start with the impact you want to have on your kids. And from there, informing the team around you about what you are hoping to accomplish. And at that point, it just becomes a planning conversation. But I will say, don't discount the irreplaceable connection that you can create with your kids at the current state, and like all the intangible stuff you're able to set them up with for the future, and building money confidence and just like money practicality. I think for me, just looking back on all of that, that's the number one thing that I appreciate the most. It's just being given an opportunity, and like my mom and dad, every time I would like say I wanted something and they find an opportunity, like create opportunities for me to make it happen, they would always celebrate even they might have looked at my decisions about this Nintendo 64 as like, whatever, why would you want to spend money on that? But they just had fun watching me grow and make independent decisions with that. And so I think, just to me, that's the most exciting part about this. It's not like it's some magic easy button that because as James, as you were just describing, all the setup and getting like getting kids on payroll and having the meetings with your team to put the infrastructure in place. It doesn't happen overnight, but it's truly an investment in our children to do that. So. And yes, it wouldn't hurt to set them up with a Roth IRA that they start from an early age. And absolutely, you're definitely that's an investment that pays big dividends long run for kids long after we're all gone, and they can always know that mom and dad were looking out for us. And so I think that it's a great way to teach kids valuable lessons. So
yeah. And I can't complete this episode without giving a special shout out to my parents, because I know Jeff was doing all the storytelling, but there's no way, I'd be the person who I am today. I'll never forget, this is a little different situation, but I did an internship for my dad one summer in college, and I had to like call all of his existing clients and try to like have them like add on like a service, basically. My dad's in like the insurance business. And that was like my first real world experience of kind of like prospecting, right? Like lead gen. And I remember just being so scared and like sweating. But I think part of like looking back on it now, that was probably 12 years ago, like Jeff and I, we have to do that every single day to help more people, So that was kind of my first real world. I think that gave me like some tougher skin, So there's definitely, even, things like sports and things like that too. I won't get into all of it, but, definitely grateful for the, the influences we had in our life. And I know if you're listening right now, and you're here, you're growth minded and you want to do the same for your kids. Otherwise, you wouldn't be 52 minutes into this. So I think there's a lot more of the intangibles that you can teach your kids in doing something like this. And then the tangibles are just cool, right? They're like icing on the cake. So, so for anybody with me today, as you always hear in these master classes and podcasts, take out a pen, piece of paper, notes app on your phone, a journal, whatever it is, and write down your top 1 to 3 action items from today. And don't just listen to this and go back to your busy life and then never do anything. So take action on something in the next 24 hours. It could be as simple as calling your tax team and scheduling the meeting just so you have it on the calendar, or connecting with your spouse or partner and saying, hey, can we get like a coffee this Saturday to sit down, and I have a really cool idea and I want to share this with you, right? So just break inertia. Otherwise, we all get busy. I mean, I many times have attended a webinar, read a book, right? And then you just kind of like move to the next and forget about it. So always take action on your top 1 to 3 in the next 24 hours. And we thank you to everybody that is here with us live. We thank you to everybody listening in the future. And once again, if you have any specific questions, please visit iamwealth.com and book a free financial wellness diagnostic today. And it's 100% free as a thank you for being here. And you'll get some direct feedback and a diagnostic one-on-one from Jeff or myself. And to that, just keep taking control, my friends.
That was awesome, man. That was a great session. Thanks everybody for listening.
Thank you all. Have a great day. I Am Wealth does not offer individual financial advice outside of a formal consulting agreement. Content discussed in the I Am Masterclass is not and does not represent financial advice, tax advice, and or legal advice. The intent of the I Am Masterclass is to provide extremely valuable financial educational content for free. For personal questions, we hope that you'll visit iamwealth.com and schedule what we call a free financial wellness diagnostic to assess the current state of your financial health and therefore help you and your family take control of their money so they can live a more meaningful life. So we'll see you there. I Am Wealth does not